Good evening and welcome, friends, to this Sunday edition of This Is Exclusive. Three important stories, all with some exclusive elements. That's going to be our focus. Tremendous violence taking place across Bangladesh, focused on Dhaka. In fact, last reports suggest almost 40 plus dead in the last 24 hours alone. This is a spurt in violence that has taken place despite a Supreme Court order which should have ideally calmed down things. Is there someone behind this orchestration of violence in Bangladesh? That's going to be our focus, with some very exclusive ground reports and a voice joining us live from Dhaka. Also, the Modi government bringing in amendments in the existing Waqf Act to make it more gender balanced, and of course to reform by reducing the possibility of litigation. But at the same time, this is also attracting protests from the Muslim groups, and that's going to be our focus, second focus, with some other exclusive elements on it, including some voices that have spoken on how the amendments might pan out and how the Muslim community might react. And third one, the shelter home horror in Delhi, and is still facing apathy from both the AAP government and of course politicization by the opposition, in this case the BJP. All that and more. Let me get you the headlines first.
Presenting by Royal Global University. Northeast can't wait. Padho, kuch bano.
All right, the Modi government intends to bring in amendments in the Waqf Act in this week of the Parliament session.
बीजेपी शुरू से वक्फ बोर्ड और वक्फ की प्रॉपर्टीज़ के खिलाफ रही है, और इनका एक हिंदुत्व का एजेंडा है, आरएसएस का एजेंडा है कि वो शुरू से वक्फ प्रॉपर्टीज़ को और वक्फ बोर्ड को ख़त्म करने की कोशिशें करती रही हैं।
Asaduddin Owaisi calls possibility of Waqf Act amendment to RSS agenda to finish off the minority community.
जितने भी हैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लोग और इस घटना से जुड़े लोग हैं,
After DNA test, Samajwadi Party now demands narco one for survivor continues to defend the rape accused Neta. More than 300 dead, over 200 still missing in Wayanad. Rescue operations continue on war footing. TMC Minister Akhilgiri seen threatening a lady officer, asked to resign from cabinet amid backlash. India beating England 4-2 in a thrilling shootout to enter hockey semis at Paris Olympics.
By Royal Global University. Northeast can't wait. Padho, kuch bano.
All right, welcome again, and let's begin this. This is exclusive with a breaking news development coming in on our story on the focus, which is violence in Bangladesh. In fact, reports coming in that the Sheikh Hasina government has clamped down a nationwide curfew beginning 6 p.m. And this is the first time that this kind of drastic step has been taken, with the violence having gone on for almost 2 months. But there has been a sudden spurt in violence since yesterday, having claimed 40 plus lives in the last 24 hours alone. As we keep getting these pictures of protest, arson, violence, rioting taking place across the country, but particularly focused in Dhaka and on campuses. Remember, these are student protests after the Sheikh Hasina government brought in a law which would have reserved 30% of seats in education and employment for families of freedom fighters of Bangladesh, and that led to immediate outpouring of protests, essentially backed by the opposition BNP, and reports suggest that there are external elements, foreign elements, fanning this violence and these protests in Bangladesh against the Sheikh Hasina government. And now, breaking news development coming in that a nationwide curfew has been imposed across Bangladesh. Okay, I'm told Shahidul Hasan Khokan, a journalist based out of Dhaka, he's joining us over the phone. The reason is that we cannot get him live because of the clampdown on social media, internet services, etc. by the Sheikh Hasina government to contain the law and order situation. So we cannot connect with the Zoom, with the WhatsApp, and that's why we are making this phone call with Shahidul. And let's understand what's happening. Shahidul, if you can tell us what's the exact status as of now, why this sudden increase in violence in the last 24 hours? One thought, after the Supreme Court order, everyone would have understood and things would have calmed down. But again, violence happening in Bangladesh. What is happening?
Basically, today, the student movement declared non-corporational movement. Today is very critical. Dhaka Party is very critical time. The student movement has resulted in massive loss of life in the country. At least 51 people are killed and numerous others injured in a series of deadly clashes. Among them, 30 policemen are killed in Sheikh district outside of Dhaka. Basically, this is not a student movement. And now political parties like BNP Jamaat and other political parties members attend the program, the student program. Manually, Dhaka and at least 15 districts outside Dhaka, they clashes with the police and supporters of the government parties.
Okay, Shahidul. Shahidul, just before I let you go, one quick question. Nationwide curfew has been imposed. How long do you think this is going to last?
Hello?
Shahidul, I am asking if you are getting me. The audio is very bad. Okay, I think we lost the line there. But friends, you have to understand what's really happening in our neighborhood to the east. It seems that, as Shahidul suggested, that these are not student protests, which means that these are being fanned politically. These are being backed perhaps by powers outside, about which both Sheikh Hasina and many of her ministers have indicated to. And in fact, reports suggest that Pakistan could be behind these protests. Remember that freedom fighters, Bangladesh got its freedom from Pakistan, and freedom fighters are those who fought against Pakistan in the context of Bangladesh, and Sheikh Hasina wanted those families to get some reservations. These protests are by those people who are pro-Pakistan or who constitute the pro-Pakistan elements within the Bangladeshi society, and perhaps that's the reason why we believe that these could be fanned. This round of protests could be fanned by forces inimical to Sheikh Hasina and the decision she had taken despite the Supreme Court intervention. Let's look at what has happened over the last 24 hours in this package being brought out for you.
Student leaders rallied Bangladesh for a nationwide civil disobedience campaign as Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government weathered a worsening backlash over a deadly police crackdown on protesters. This comes after rallies against civil service job quotas sparked days of mayhem, which killed more than 200 people in probably the worst unrest of Hasina's 15-year tenure. Troop deployments briefly restored order, but crowds hit the streets in huge numbers after heeding a call by student leaders to press the government for more concessions. The protesters have also been calling on Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to tender her resignation. In the Bangladeshi Prime Minister's latest statement, Hasina has vowed action. She also added that she is ready to listen to the concerns that have been put forward by the students.
আমার সাথে যদি বসতে চায় তাহলে আমি বসতে রাজি। তারা যদি এখনো আসতে চায়, কথা বলতে চায়, আমি তাদের সাথে কথা বলতে চাই, তাদের কথা শুনতে চাই, তাদের দাবি কী কী বাকি আছে আমি এটা শুনতে চাই, এবং যেটা আমাদের সাধ্যমতো সেটা আমি পূরণ করতে চাই। আমি এই সংঘাত চাই না। তারা যদি বসতে চায় আমার সঙ্গে, এই আন্দোলনকারীরা, কোটা আন্দোলনকারীরা, আমি তাদের সাথে বসবো, তাদের কথা শুনবো, তাদের দাবি দেওয়া এ পর্যন্ত যা মেনে নিয়েছে আরও কিছু আছে কি না সেটা হয়তো শুনতে হবে। এবং আপনাদের সামনে আমি বলতে চাচ্ছি যেটা দেশবাসীরও জানা উচিত যে আমি কখনোই আমার দরজা বন্ধ করিনি। গণভবনের দরজা খোলা। যখনই এই আন্দোলনকারীরা কথা বলতে চায়, আলোচনা করে সমাধান করতে চায়, আমি তাদের সাথে নিজেই বসতে রাজি। আমি আবারও বলছি যে আন্দোলনকারীরা যদি আলোচনা করতে চায়, আমি এখনও রাজি। যে কোনো সময় তারা আসতে পারে, আলোচনা করতে পারে, দরকার হলে তাদের গার্জিয়ানদের নিয়েও আসতে পারে।
Clashes have now broken out between the Awami League supporters and countless protesters. According to reports, Hasina has now called for a meeting of the National Committee on Security Affairs. This meeting was attended by the topmost military staff. The Prime Minister's advisor and the Home Minister were also present in this integral meeting. In an exclusive conversation with Republic, a former Bangladeshi minister with close ties to the Prime Minister hinted at the American hand in the Bangladesh unrest. The state of affairs in Bangladesh seems to be in utter chaos. As Bangladesh navigates this turmoil, will the government heed the students' demands or face further unrest?
So there seems to be clear bid to destabilize the Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh, and we will keep a close eye on the developments on our neighbor to the east. But for now, moving on, with the centre likely to table the Waqf Board amendment bill in the parliament next week, the opposition has struck a dissenting note, calling the draft legislation as an attempt by the BJP to play the religion card. Here's a report with all the latest.
As the centre gears up to introduce the Waqf Amendment Bill in Parliament, the opposition and Muslim leaders are crying foul. AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi has called the move an extension of the RSS agenda to finish off Waqf properties.
ये जो प्रपोज अमेंडमेंट से मीडिया में जो लिखा गया है वो इस बात को बताता है कि मोदी हुकूमत वक्फ बोर्ड की ऑटोनॉमी को छीनना चाहती है और वो इंटरफेयर करना चाहती है वाकिफ़ के मंशे के ख़िलाफ़ कि किस तरह से उस वक्फ की प्रॉपर्टी को चलाया जाए, और ये खुद फ्रीडम ऑफ रिलीजन के ख़िलाफ़ है।
Welcoming the proposed legislation, BJP leader Alok Kumar also addressed this pressing issue.
The Waqf Act is one of the most arbitrary acts in India. It gives exclusive power to Waqf Board to declare any property as of the Waqf. And in doing this, they do not have to give notice to the occupier of the property or the person who holds the title papers. They issue a notification, publish it in the Gazette. Nobody reads the Gazette. A year passes by. The Gazette is not known to everybody, so the notification is not challenged. The property then wastes in the Waqf.
The National Conference came down heavily on this move by the government.
वक्फ बोर्ड जो है, जब उसको वक्फ बोर्ड कहते हैं तो उसके अंदर इलेक्टेड बॉडीज़ होती हैं। अगर वहाँ कोई ऐसी चीज़ लग रही है कानूनी तौर पे कि किसी प्रॉपर्टी के ऊपर वक्फ बोर्ड ने नाजायज़ कब्ज़ा किया हुआ है या करने जा रहे हैं या ऐसी मंशा है, तो वो जो कोर्ट्स हैं ना, वो किस लिए? और अगर वो कानून के अंदर तब्दीली लाना चाहते हैं तो क्या ये रिकमेंडेशन किसी बोर्ड ने की है? किसने की है? बड़ी बदकिस्मती की बात है कि ये अब दादागिरी कर रहे हैं। वक्फ बोर्ड जो है वो बाज़ाब्ता तौर पे एक अदारा है, बहुत पुराना अदारा है और हर जगह काम करता है। उसमें इलेक्टेड बॉडीज़ होती हैं और वो
बॉडीज़ को भी रिस्ट्रक्चर किया जाएगा। 30 जो वक्फ बोर्ड हैं पूरे देश भर में, उनकी बॉडीज़ को भी रिस्ट्रक्चर किया जाएगा,
क्योंकि बीजेपी के बंदों को लाने के लिए शायद यही सूरत हो सकती है।
The Samajwadi Party said that scholars and the electoral Waqf board should have been consulted prior to the government's action.
वक्फ बोर्डों से जो भी वक्फ बोर्ड है, इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज होता है, वक्फ बोर्ड चुना जाता है, 7-8 मेंबर होते हैं उसमें स्कॉलर भी होते हैं, उसमें वकील भी होते हैं, उसमें समाज सेवी भी होते हैं, सब तरह की उसमें नुमाइंदगी होती है, सब समाज के सब वर्गों की। तो पहले तो उनसे पूछना चाहिए कि जो वक्फ संपत्तियाँ जिस वर्ग से मुताल्लिक है उस वर्ग का क्या कानून है उनके बारे में, ये पूछकर कानून लाया जाए। अगर लाना है या कोई संशोधन करना है कि कहाँ मुनासिब है, कहाँ नहीं है, किस हद तक हमें जाना है और कहाँ रुक जाना है। किसी की आज़ादी, किसी की मज़हब की आज़ादी, किसी की विल की आज़ादी कहाँ कहीं ऐसा ना हो वो ख़त्म हो रही हो। तो उजलत में, बहुत जल्दबाजी में कोई ऐसा कानून संसद में लाया जाना मुनासिब नहीं है।
With the centre putting forward its defence of the draft legislation and the opposition voicing concern, expect the Waqf bill to be the new flashpoint as the parliament resumes this Monday.
As the political squabbling and blame game continues over the Delhi shelter home deaths, an inmate at the Asha Kiran has spilled the beans on the shocking state of affairs at the facility. Significantly, Republic is the first channel to get an inmate to be speaking live on camera. Listen to him.
As the Delhi LG and the AAP continue to beat loggerheads over the shelter home deaths, an inmate has given an insight into the grim state of affairs at the facility. Speaking to your channel, the inmate has revealed that he doesn't get adequate food at the shelter. The inmate, Karthik, says the quality of food provided at the shelter also leaves a lot to be desired.
क्या नाम है? अच्छा, मुझे बताइए कि आपको वहाँ पे प्रॉपर खाना मिलता है क्या आशा किरण के अंदर? खाना साफ सुथरा मिलता है क्या? आपको खाना अच्छा देते हैं वहाँ पे? साफ सुथरा खाना मिलता है क्या? खाना साफ सुथरा मिलता है आपको आशा किरण के अंदर?
Meanwhile, the Lieutenant Governor's office denied appointing the caretaker of the shelter home who is under fire over the deaths. The LG office put out a release saying the caretaker was appointed by the Social Welfare Department, which comes under the direct control of the Delhi Chief Minister. However, AAP Minister Saurabh Bharadwaj again dragged the LG to the shelter home deaths.
शेल्टर होम के अंदर डॉक्टरों की और पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ की कमी है। पोस्ट्स अवेलेबल हैं मगर पोस्ट वेकेंट हैं, तो उन वैकेंसीज़ को भरने का काम दिल्ली की चुनी हुई सरकार का। मैं हैरान था कि अखबार में ये बात कैसे लिख दी गई।
As more and more shocking revelations from Delhi's home of horror stumble out, the AAP may be running out of excuses to defend itself.
All right, so it's clear that between the Minister Saurabh Bharadwaj and the Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena, there is a ping pong happening on the issue of the Asha Kiran shelter home. We earlier had one of the inmates admitting that the food is not good, and let's try to understand what has happened through the day on this very important development concerning those mentally challenged inmates of Asha Kiran shelter home in Delhi. Piyush Ori joins me live. He's joining us live from Delhi. Piyush, has there been some police action today on this case, and what's been the government action insofar as taking care of the rest of the inmates at Asha Kiran is concerned?
So good evening to you, Abhishek, and good evening to all our viewers who are viewing us at the moment. And perhaps it may not be good evening for all those patients who are getting treatment at Asha Kiran, the Delhi shelter home, which comes under the Delhi government. And we really do not know what is the state of affairs of the mentally challenged patients who are getting treatment over there, who are staying over there, because there is just no transparency. And when I say there is just no transparency, you can understand from the fact that despite there have been 27 deaths in the last 7 months, in which 14 have been reported in the month of July itself, the media has not been allowed to enter inside the Delhi shelter home, which comes under the Delhi government. Now, there is a lot of hue and cry, Abhishek, about who actually is the caretaker. Yesterday, the Republic Media Network broke the story of how it has been managed by a person identified as Rahul Agarwal. Now, this person has a tainted record. He has been arrested earlier by the Central Bureau of Investigation for the charges of graft. In fact, he was when he was the sub-district magistrate of Saraswati Vihar, which is just adjoining the Delhi shelter home. He had taken bribes from certain private builders. He was not only arrested by the Central Bureau of Investigation, but he was even sacked from his post of SDM. However, despite this, he was being reinstated as the caretaker for the Delhi shelter home. Now, who is responsible for this? We are seeing that there is a blame game between the Lieutenant Governor and the Delhi government. But the key question is that what is the state of affairs of the patients over there? And for this, there is just no transparency. And only when the report comes in, when the magisterial report comes in, the police charge also may be initiated. But what is the report? That is only going to come in when the Delhi government wants to bring in. Back to you in the studio.
No, Piyush, before I let you go, one more question. Why are they not letting reporters see for themselves what's happening inside Asha Kiran? It's been about 2 days or 3 days now, in fact, and the facility would have been suitably sanitized. And despite that, they're not letting reporters and the media to access and see for themselves what's the status. So obviously there is something to hide.
You rightly mentioned, Abhishek, and you've hit the nail on its head. There are a lot of can of worms which are there in that Delhi shelter home, which is being hidden. You can just understand from this fact, Abhishek, that the capacity of the shelter home was over 350. Yet, despite this, there were 1,200 patients that were put in that shelter home. You can understand from the fact that how careless the authorities over there were, that with normal patients, you were keeping patients suffering from tuberculosis, and you know that how tuberculosis is a contagious disease, how it's a contactual disease. Despite knowing this, they were keeping the patient with tuberculosis with the normal patients. They were providing the patient with contaminated food, water. So despite all these things being known, they are now hiding it, and they know that in the 3 days also, it would not be sufficient for them to sanitize all the facilities.
Okay.
So, knowing the fact that it is going to be brought out in the open, they want to keep the media away from the can of worms that needs to be hidden inside that unfortunate Delhi shelter home. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Piyush, with those updates. Another story which is going to be closely tracked even as the blame game continues. We are going to fix accountability and make sure that the Delhi government acts and sanitizes the shelter home completely, and the facilities are upgraded to basic human standards. Moving on, we are in fact getting a breaking news development connected with the earlier story that we brought to you, which is the Waqf Act amendment bill being brought in by the Modi government in the parliament, or likely to be brought in. The government sources suggest that as yet no date has been finalized. So while the bill is in the works and is going to be brought in, a date has not been fixed, is what we are getting to hear. But a decision is yet to be taken. And even as the government says, sources suggest that a date might not be final when to bring the law. The law is already ready, and that it was necessitated by a lot of litigation that Waqf properties face across the country. In a way, it's a pro-Muslim community, particularly pro-poor Muslim members of the Muslim community bill. And the sources tell us that this is also going to bring in a level of gender inclusion. And those provisions are going to be part of the amendments that are to be incorporated in the bill to be brought before the Parliament in this session, the date for which has not yet been finalized. This is what we had in This Is Exclusive Sunday edition. Short break. On the other side, Live in Breaking is back. And of course, join me at 9 p.m. with a debate on what are the amendments in the Waqf Act and what it means for the Muslim community.